and welcome to Living Inspired with Autism, the show for parents raising autistic children who want to feel calm and powerful and deeply in control of their lives without losing themselves in the process. I'm Antoinette, and every week we're going to talk about emotional strength, regulation, leadership, and creating a life that works for you, not just one that you survive. Before we dive in today, I am so excited about something that I have been working on, and I want to personally invite you to join me for my free masterclass called Regulated, Resourced, and Ready. And if I'm not mistaken, it's going to happen on March the 16th, because that is what we're going to be working on towards today. You being regulated, you being resourced, you being ready. Ready to lead your family instead of constantly feeling like you're just barely holding on. Now, the link is in the show notes, so make sure you sign up before we begin. So stop the podcast, sign up, because this episode is going to open your eyes. And when it does, you'll want somewhere to go next. We are going to talk about something that's going to blow your mind. We're talking about treating yourself like the asset. And when I say this concept is powerful, I mean it in the deepest sense, because this is not motivational fluff. This is not, oh, love yourself more advice wrapped up in a pretty bow. This is a fundamental shift in how you see yourself. And when it clicks, it changes how you make decisions, how you manage your energy, how you show up for your child, and honestly, just how you move through every single day. So stay with me, because we are going to go deep. So this is what happens when you're in survival mode. When you're just trying to get through the day, just trying to prevent the next disaster, the meltdown, just trying to prevent something major that happened at school, the sensory challenges, the family dynamics, the financial pressure, just trying to make it easier. You start treating yourself like a side hustle instead of an asset. And let me tell you what that looks like, because I want you to actually see it. You put yourself last. Not once, habitually, automatically, as if your needs are the thing that you get to when everything else is handled, which of course is never, because everything is never handled. You don't rest properly. You collapse at the end of the day, but collapsing isn't the same as resting. Collapsing is what happens when you've hit your limit. Resting is intentional, and you've forgotten how to do that intentionally. You also don't celebrate wins. Your kiddo does something new, something that you've been working on for months. And before you've even fully absorbed it, your brain is already moving to the next challenge, the next appointment, the next thing that's not working yet. And you don't take yourself seriously. And this is what is hard, because when you don't take yourself seriously, nobody else does either. People aren't unkind, but you train them not to treat you seriously. You've made yourself the one who handles it all, the one who manages, the one who keeps going. And so everyone just assumes that you're okay, that you're fine, because you've been performing fine for so long that they don't see the cracks. And then you wonder why you feel so exhausted and blah. Here's why. Because you are the asset of this family, and you have not been treating yourself like one. So let me say that again. You are the asset of your family. You. Your nervous system, your emotional regulation, your leadership, your presence. And I want to name a lot of stuff that you're actually doing, because I don't think you let yourself hear this often enough. You were the one who noticed something was different when everyone else was saying, oh, your kiddo will catch up, or all kids develop at their own pace. Something in you knew. You were the one who pushed for answers when everybody else told you to wait. You were the one who sat in the assessment waiting rooms, who received the diagnosis and somehow had to keep functioning when it felt like the world had just tilted. You are the one who researches all the things autism early in the morning, who reads the studies, who finds the specialist, who fights for funding and services and access that your kiddo is entitled to, but somehow has to be fought for every single time. You are the one who holds your child through the meltdowns, not just by being physically present, but trying to stay regulated yourself and trying to be calm in the middle of the storm when everything inside of you is screaming. You are the one who explains your kiddo to the world, to the grandparents who mean well but just don't quite understand, to teachers who are frustrated, to strangers who stare. You translate, you educate, you advocate over and over. You are the one who knows which foods they'll eat and which will trigger a shutdown. You know the precise morning routine. You sense the signs of overload before anyone else in the room even registers that something is off. You are the one who listens politely to advice that is completely off base because you're just too tired, too exhausted to argue, and also because you've learned that people who haven't lived this cannot understand it. You are the one. Now let me ask you something. Does that sound like someone who should be treated like a side hustle? Or does that sound like the most essential, high-stakes, emotionally demanding role in the entire operation of your family? You are the asset, and everything, I mean everything, flows from you. I want you to try on an analogy for me. Imagine a huge company, a real thriving company. Thousands of people and their families depend on the decisions made at the top, the direction, the culture, the capacity to handle hard seasons. All of it flows from the CEO. Now imagine that CEO stops taking care of themselves. They stop sleeping. They stop making strategic decisions because they're just too busy. They stop delegating because they don't trust anyone else to handle things. They stop investing in their own capacity because there's no time. What do you think happens to that company? It falters. Maybe not immediately, but slowly, inevitably, the quality of leadership degrades and the whole operation suffers. Now, imagine different CEO. This CEO protects their sleep. They protect their energy. They make deliberate decisions rather than reactive ones. They plan, they delegate, they regulate. They treat themselves as the most valuable asset in the organization because they understand that everything they create flows through them. Now that company thrives. Now think about it. You are the CEO of your family, and your emotional state is the climate of your home. When you're regulated and calm and deliberate, your family feels that. Your kiddo feels that. It becomes the environment that they live inside. But when you're running on empty and you're dysregulated and reactive, they feel that too. And we all know for an autistic child who is already highly sensitive to emotional atmospheres, your state isn't just background noise, it is the very air that they're breathing. And this is why treating yourself as an asset is not selfish. It is the most strategic thing that you can do for your child. Let's be a little bit more practical because I don't want this to be an abstract thing. Your child may have a significant regression, something that you thought you've moved on months ago. Or maybe you receive an unexpected medical bill that just wipes out your savings. Now, your old mindset, where you're in survival mode, responds something like this. Why is this always happening? This is so unfair. Cannot handle one more thing. And that kind of response isn't wrong, by the way. It is completely human. It makes total sense given what you're carrying. But here is what the asset mind says instead. This is hard. And I am the person who can handle hard things. Notice what that shift does in your body. And it doesn't deny that it's difficult. It doesn't bypass that pain. It doesn't require you to pretend that everything is fine. But it steps into leadership. It keeps you in your power instead of handing your power over to your circumstance. Because when you see yourself as an asset, you understand that your state of mind is the most valuable thing that you bring to your family. Not a perfect plan, not having all the answers, not being unaffected by hard things. Your ability to feel hard things and still lead, that is the skill which you can learn. I want to talk about the difference between the survival mode and leadership mode, because a lot of parents don't realize that they're running on survival mode for so long, they've actually forgotten that there's another way. Now, survival mode is about just getting through the day, reacting, putting out fires, collapsing at night, and then repeating it all over again the next day. Leadership mode is about asking, what result am I actually creating here? Where is my energy going? Am I taking focused action or just busy action? And this distinction matters enormously because there are 3 types of action that are available to you any given moment. The first is maintenance action. These are the things that keep life running. Appointments, meals, routines, all that kind of thing. Those things are necessary. The second is busy action. Constant movement that feels productive, but produces very little strategic result. And this is where most parents of autism live. Constantly doing, constantly problem solving, constantly moving, but not actually moving forward. And the third is focused, purposeful action. These are deliberate choices about where your energy goes that is aligned with the life that you're actually trying to build. Not just putting out fires, but actually building something. The asset takes focused action. They plan, they calendar, they decide deliberately about what gets the energy and what doesn't. They rest on purpose. They choose their battles because they know their energy is finite and precious. And this is the thing about busy action. It doesn't just produce little results. It steals your energy. It leaves you feeling exhausted. And over time, living in busy action is one of the most demoralizing things that you can do for yourself. So the question is, which type of action are you predominantly taking right now? If you're the asset, then regulating yourself is maintenance. Full stop. You wouldn't drive your car for years without servicing it and expect it to perform at its best. You wouldn't run your phone at 2% battery all day and wonder why it keeps crashing. And yet, you expect yourself to run exhausted, dysregulated, and under-resourced, and then feel confused when you can't show up the way that you want to. Regulation is not a luxury. It is maintenance of the asset. It is your maintenance. And regulation does not have to mean spa days and elaborate self-care routines. Way more complicated than it actually needs to be. Regulation is breathing. Regulation is sleeping. Regulation is drinking water, eating real food, moving your body. Regulation is saying no when yes would cost you more than you have. Simple things, unglamorous things, but they are what keep the asset functioning. And this is something I want you to think about. Your energy is currency. You cannot lead well from exhaustion. And this is motivational speaking. This is just physics. You cannot give what you don't have. When you're well rested and regulated, a meltdown is hard, but it's manageable. You can stay present, you can hold the space. But when you're exhausted and you're running on nothing, that same meltdown feels catastrophic. Everything feels catastrophic because your nervous system is already at its limit and there is nothing left in reserve. Energy is not dramatic. It is just practical. I just want to take a break for a moment because if you're listening to this and you're recognizing yourself in what I'm describing, if you're starting to see that you have not been treating yourself as an asset, then you need to be in regulated, resourced, and ready masterclass. Because in that training, I walk you step by step through how to regulate your nervous system, how to resource yourself emotionally, how to move from being reactive to being intentional. I teach you how to be a leader, how to design a curated life, and how to connect with your kiddo. It is free. It is foundational. And if today's episode is resonating with you, that masterclass is the next logical step. So sign up now. The link is in the show notes. I want to see you there. Let's get back to being the asset. One of the things that keeps autism parents stuck in survival mode is the way that they interpret failure. When a strategy doesn't work, the survival mindset says, I can't do this. I'm not enough. Nothing I try works. Asset mindset says something different. It says, this is just data. This is just information. What can I do differently? What can I adjust? And if you try a new regulation and it doesn't work, that's just information. It just tells you something about what your child needs and what to try differently next time. If you attempt a new routine and it collapses, data, not proof that you don't know what you're doing, data about what needs refining. The asset mindset removes the drama, it removes the shame spiral, and it keeps you in curiosity. This is asset thinking in action. Now, sometimes, not always, but sometimes we unconsciously stay in victim mode because it feels justified, because we've been through so much, because the grief is real, because the exhaustion is real. Because we didn't ask for this, and it is unfair in so many ways. And you are allowed to feel all of it. I'm not dismissing any of it. But there is a difference between feeling something and building a home in it. The asset allows grief. They allow frustration. They allow the hard feelings to move through them. But they do not set up permanent residence there. Because staying in victim mode, staying in entitlement to a different reality, staying in self-pity, doesn't change the circumstances, just makes them harder. It drains that exact energy you need to actually move through the hard things. So I want to offer you a question to ask yourself, and be honest with yourself. If I treated myself like the most valuable asset in my family, what would I do right now? Now, would you stay up doom scrolling for another hour? Would you say yes to that extra commitment that you know you don't want to do? Would you skip that very necessary doctor's appointment that you've been putting off? Or would you choose differently? Because asset thinking changes micro decisions. And micro decisions, those are the tiny daily choices about where your energy goes changes your identity over time. And then remember, your child does not need a perfect parent. They need a stable one. They need someone who can sit with them in dysregulation without freaking out. They need someone who can hold space for their biggest feelings. Someone whose nervous system is grounded. Because if your nervous system cannot regulate, you cannot help your child learn to regulate theirs. This is not about being superhuman. This is not about being unaffected by hard things. It's about doing the work consistently, imperfectly, deliberately, to be more regulated tomorrow than you were today, to have more capacity next month than you do right now. That work is the most important investment that you can make in your child's well-being. You, your regulation, your leadership, and your presence. When you treat yourself like the asset, your kiddo benefits in ways that no amount of external intervention can replicate. All right. I want you to picture yourself 5 years from now. Your kiddo is still autistic, of course. Life is still 50-50. There are still hard days alongside good ones. There are still challenges that you didn't anticipate. There are still moments that test everything you are, but you are different. You are calm. Things around you aren't always calm, but you have built that internal capacity to hold things without being thrown off by them. You are decisive. You don't spiral in uncertainty the way you used to. You feel fear and you lead anyway. You handle things, maybe not perfectly, but consistently, powerfully, and without that constant sense that you're about to fall apart. That version of you treated themselves like an asset. They are rested, they planned, they regulated, they made deliberate choices with their energy. They stopped quitting on themselves. They understood that every micro decision was a vote for their future self. They stopped waiting for this to get easier and they started making themselves stronger. That person is available to you. They're not a fantasy. They are the version of you that exists on the other side of this identity shift. And they start today. You are the asset. You are the anchor. You are the CEO. You are the emotional climate of your home. Protect that, maintain that, invest in that. Not because you have to earn it and not because you have to be perfect, but because when you treat yourself like the asset, your life changes, your family feels it, your child feels it, you feel it, and that is leadership. All right, my friends, thank you for being here today. This conversation matters and you matter too. You are the asset. And make sure that you join the Regulated Resource and Ready Masterclass. And the link is in the show notes below. So come and continue this work with me in a much deeper way. Until next week. Bye for now.